Hello friends, I welcome you to the next lecture on Ind AS 40 investment properties. In this lecture I am going to talk about initial recognition, subsequent measurement and then disposal. Okay. So how to deal with initial recognition, subsequent measurement of investment property and disposal is what we are going to discuss in this video. Now initial recognition, investment property can be recognized initially when the definition of an asset is met. So we have to satisfy two conditions before an investment property is recognized as an asset. First, you have to demonstrate that it is probable that in future economic benefits from this investment property are going to flow to the entity. Second, you should be able to measure the cost reliably. When these two conditions are met, you can recognize investment property as an asset in your books of account. That means it has to satisfy the definition of an asset which is contained in the framework. So asset is a resource controlled because of past activities from which it is probable that future economic benefits are going to flow to the entity. And the next is the cost can be measured reliably. Only in that circumstance you can recognize investment property in your books. So this criteria has to be applied not only the initial expenditure which is incurred to acquire investment property, the same criteria whether an expenditure can be included as part of cost of the asset, again the same criteria has to be applied. That means any cost of making additions to investment property, replacing parts of investment property, servicing parts of an investment property, any expenditure before it is capitalized as an asset, this recognition criteria has to be satisfied. Okay. Next, measurement at initial recognition. So let us suppose I have satisfied the definition of an asset. I want to recognize the investment property in my books of account as an asset. At what value should I recognize it? The standard says at acquisition cost, purchase cost. That means you have to add purchase price, the price you have paid to acquire the investment property, transaction cost. If you have incurred any transaction cost, those transaction costs can be added. Any directly attributable costs, like you are paying some professional fees for legal services, you have paid some property transfer taxes and other transaction costs, such costs which are directly attributable to the acquisition of the asset can be added as part of cost of the asset. Okay. Next, it does not include startup costs. If you have incurred any startup costs and they are not necessary to bring the property to the condition of its intended use, you are not going to include it. Operating losses. See, you have a building which you want to give it on rent. There are a lot of units in the building and few units you have already given on rent and you are waiting for tenants for the remaining units. Initially it may make a loss to you because the cost of the building, the cost of maintaining the building will be more than what is the rent you are getting from some of the units which have been let out. So till the day a specific portion of the building is occupied by tenants, you may not make profits, you may continue to make losses. So these losses will not be added to cost of the asset, they will be debited to profit and loss account. Abnormal amounts of wasted material, labor, other resources incurred in constructing or developing the property will not be included. These principles are similar to the principles which are prescribed in Ind AS 16, property, plant and equipment. So abnormal amounts of material which was wasted during construction of the building, or abnormal amount of wasted labor time, abnormal amount of overhead which have been wasted during the construction process, such amounts are not going to form part of cost of investment. They have to be debited to profit and loss account. Okay. Now, if suppose the investment property is purchased under deferred payment, you have acquired a property and you are going to pay the money in installments over extended periods of time. In such cases, the investment property should be capitalized in your books at cash price equivalent. So you have to find out what would be the cash price. At that price, you have to capitalize the asset. The difference between the amount we are going to pay and the cash price, the difference is interest, the finance charge. It has to be recognized over the payment period in the profit and loss account. It cannot be capitalized as part of cost of investment. Okay. What is the cost of property taken under finance lease? Suppose you are a lessee, you have taken a property on finance lease. So at what value will you show this property in your books of account? Now the prescription are similar to Ind AS 17 principles, where you say if a lessee has taken an asset on finance lease, the asset has to be recognized in his books at lower of fair value of the asset on the date of the lease agreement or present value of minimum lease payments, whichever is lower. At that value you are going to recognize. So as per the standard also, it should be recognized at lower of fair value of the property or present value of minimum lease payments. Lower of the two numbers you are going to recognize. This is as per the requirements of Ind AS 17. Okay, similar to the requirements of Ind AS 17. When it is acquired in an exchange transaction, so there can be a situation where you are acquiring a investment property, instead of paying cash you are exchanging non-monetary assets. That means you are exchanging an asset for an asset, and the asset which you are giving is not a monetary asset. If it is cash, it is very easy to measure the consideration paid. But suppose you are acquiring investment property and you are giving up a non-monetary asset, then how do you deal with it? So if you have acquired investment property in an exchange transaction, how do you deal with it? So what standard says is, the investment property acquired can be measured at fair value, but there are two conditions. At least one of the conditions has to be satisfied. There should be some commercial substance to the transaction, or at least one of the fair values of the asset given up or fair value of the asset received. At least one of them should be determined, the fair value should be determinable reasonably. If both the conditions are not satisfied, it is not possible to measure the investment property acquired at its fair value. In such cases, if both the conditions are not satisfied, in such cases, the WDV or the carrying amount of the asset given up will be considered as the fair value of the asset acquired. Okay. If these conditions are satisfied, then you can adopt fair value for measurement of investment property. Which fair value you have to use? A specific question will arise. In such cases, standard says fair value of the asset given up should be the value of the asset which you have acquired. If the fair value of the asset received is more clearly evident, in such cases we are going to adopt it as the value to be incorporated in our books of account. I'll again repeat, when you are exchanging non-monetary asset for an investment property, you are exchanging non-monetary asset. In such cases, if you want to measure the asset acquired at its fair value, at least one of the conditions to satisfied. There should be some commercial substance to the transaction, or you should be at least able to determine the fair value of one of the assets reliably. If the fair value of the asset or fair value of the asset received or given up is determinable reasonably, then in such cases you can adopt the fair value formula. And when you adopt the fair value formula, the standard has a, we can say, a hierarchy. It says fair value of the asset given up should be considered as the fair value of the asset acquired. It should be considered as the value of the asset acquired to be recognized in your books of accounts initially. But if fair value of the asset acquired is more clearly available, it should be considered as the value at which the asset is going to be initially recognized. But if none of the conditions are satisfied, that means the transaction does not have any commercial substance, it is not possible to determine fair value of either the asset given up or the asset received. In such cases, carrying amount of the asset given up will be considered as the value at which the asset acquired has to be recognized in your books of account. Okay. Now, measurement after recognition. I have already learned the principles to find the value at which assets have to be recognized in my books of account initially. Now, what happens subsequently? I have already incorporated an item of investment property in my books of account on balance sheet date. How should I find its value for balance sheet purpose? Now, standard has not given any option. As per the standard, we have to adopt the cost model. Now, for more details on cost model, we have to go to Ind AS 16. So, as per Ind AS 16, carrying amount of an asset under cost model is determined by a simple equation. You have to find out the cost, subtract accumulated depreciation, accumulated impairment losses to arrive at the carrying amount for balance sheet purpose. So, that is the model we have to adopt. Okay. In International Accounting Standard 40, there is an option given. If you want, you can adopt even the fair value model, and any fair value changes would be recognized in profit and loss account. That means on initial recognition and on subsequent measurement. On subsequent measurement, you can measure the investment property at its fair value, and the difference between the initial recognition value and the subsequent measurement fair value, if there is any difference, it will be recognized in P&L account. If it decreases, there will be a loss. If it increases, there will be a profit which will be recognized in the P&L account. But this option is not available. The standard allows only cost model. And it says, suppose the investment property satisfies the definition of an asset held for sale under Ind AS 105, or it forms part of a group of asset which is held for sale under Ind AS 105, then subsequent measurement principles will not be prescribed by the standard. The subsequent measurement principles will be prescribed by Ind AS 105. Okay. So the standard only permits cost model, it does not permit the fair value model. Okay. Disclosure of fair value. But what the standard says is, entities which are adopting cost model for investment properties, they have to measure the fair value of their investment properties, and also they have to disclose them. So this is one of the most important requirements. Even though you continue to adopt cost model for arriving at the values to be shown in the balance sheet, you are still required to estimate the fair value of the investment property and disclose the fair value of the investment property in your balance sheet notes to accounts. Okay. And one more condition is, what the standard says is, the standard only encourages but does not require. That means it is not compulsory, but standard encourages use of professional valuers to estimate the fair value of the investment property, which is only required to be disclosed, which is not required to be shown in the balance sheet. You have to show it only outside the balance sheet in notes to accounts. Okay. You are only encouraged, not required to adopt the services of a professional valuer. Okay. Now subsequent measurement, an entity shall measure all of its investment properties in accordance with Ind AS 16 requirements of cost model, that is cost minus accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment losses. Investment properties that meet the criteria to be classified as held for sale or which are included as part of disposal group, the requirements of Ind AS 105 will apply. Okay, that means if there is an investment property, it satisfies the definition of an asset held for sale under Ind AS 105, or it is part of a group which is held for sale under Ind AS 105, then for balance sheet purpose you have to measure the value of the asset at fair value less cost to sell. The measurement principle is different when it is classified as asset held for sale and satisfies the definition of asset held for sale under Ind AS 105. Measurement principles will be now prescribed by Ind AS 105. But if it is not an asset held for sale, in such cases Ind AS 40 says cost model. Cost model is historical cost less accumulated depreciation and accumulated impairment losses. Okay. De-recognize. When should I de-recognize an investment property? On disposal. When I have disposed the investment property, I have to de-recognize. Or when the investment property is permanently withdrawn from use and no future economic benefits are expected from its disposal. So when this event happens, you have to de-recognize the investment property from your books of account. On disposal, or you have permanently withdrawn investment property from use and you know that even on disposal you are not going to get any economic benefits, you have to de-recognize investment property in your books of accounts. Now, disposal. How can disposal take place? That is by sale or by giving it on finance lease to a lessee. So if you can find a lessee, give it on finance lease, you have to de-recognize the asset from your books of account. Then gain or loss is the difference between carrying amount and disposal proceeds recognized in P&L account in the year of disposal. So you have to arrive at gain or loss. The disposal proceeds and the carrying amount, the difference between gain or loss will be recognized in the profit and loss account in the year of disposal. Okay. Compensation from third parties. See, there can be situations where if the investment property which you are holding is impaired, or if it is lost, or if it is given up, a third party may agree to compensate you for this impairment loss or for the loss of the investment property, or when you have given up the investment property, a third party may compensate you for such losses. In such cases, the day when this compensation becomes receivable, you can consider it as part of consideration receivable on sale, and only in that year when the compensation becomes receivable, it can be considered for arriving at gain or loss to be recognized in profit and loss account. Okay. Now here there can be various situations which you have to handle from accounting perspective. There is an impairment loss. How to measure impairment loss? How to do accounting for impairment loss? Ind AS 36 will talk about impairment loss accounting. Then the second issue is de-recognition. When to de-recognize investment property from our books of account? The requirements of the standard has to be applied. Third, compensation. I am going to receive compensation from the third party. So when can I use this compensation for arriving at profit or loss to be recognized in P&L account? You have to use the provisions of this standard. When the compensation becomes receivable, you have to include it for the purpose of computation of profit or loss to be shown in the P&L account. And the last is replacement. With this compensation, you may go for replacement of the asset. So how to arrive at the value of the asset which is replaced? Again, you are going to apply the requirements of the standard separately. That means you have to break it down into 4 different issues and apply the separate accounting principles to these 4 issues. All have to be dealt separately as per the standard. Okay. So thanks a lot for listening to this lecture.